welcome back to the channel. We're on our third Catholic tree sign, the ash. And the ash tree as a sign goes from February 18th to March 17th. And it is considered the enchanter. So people with this sign are free thinkers, naturally creative, powerful imagination, intuitive and spontaneous. And the creatures for this sign are seal, seahorse, and a seagull. And the stone is a coral. So let's see what else we can find out about the ash tree.
In magic, so as I've already said, the ash is associated with divination, with seeing the future, but also protection and healing. So if you take the end of an ash branch like this and put it in your pocket, that will give you protection. The Vikings used to do this on sea journeys, so it is a protective charm.
Interesting how in the rowan tree also was used as a protective charm by putting a piece in your pocket.
If you take a branch like this and put it on your pillow, a young woman, she may well have dreams of a future lover. So again, prophetic or divination aspects. Also healing. So this is a genuine piece of English folk magic that used to be done. My grandmother told me about this one. So this used to be done right up into the modern age. You take a pin, and this is to kill warts. You stick the pin in a wart, and then you stick it in the ashtray, and the wart will transfer onto the ashtray. So this is a very old principle in magic, but really nice that this bit of folk magic has been done right up into the modern age.
This is weird that they would take and stick the wart and then the tree. It would seem if the tree had medical properties, wouldn't you stick the tree and transfer like the sap or whatever into the wart?
Into the modern age. Purely biologically as well, ash sap is very, very good for you. It cleans out the body. It's a diuretic. So yeah, those are some aspects of folk magic about the ash tree. Ash was traditionally used as an ingredient in beer before hops became regular. Again, because it has health-giving properties. Going back to Norse magic, there's a particular word of power. It's called Alu. The A, the Anzuz rune, then L, and then the U rune, Alu, and it's normally engraved on amulets for protection, health, and power. And of course, it has the Anzuz rune in it. Alu is where we get the contemporary name ale, i.e., beer, which is a magic drink.
But let's quickly head to the Nordic world and find out a little bit more about ash trees in their mythology. Now, Paul Kendall describes Yggdrasil as an ash tree, and obviously you would know Yggdrasil as the world tree, which links the underworld, our realm, and the heavens. And basically this means that the ash essentially holds the cosmos together. Now, in a lot of ways, the ash makes a good choice for Yggdrasil, since the trees can apparently grow to around 35 metres in height. Interestingly, Margaret Baker points out that the tree's roots are believed to cover the same depth below ground as the branches reach into the air.
The Celtic and the Nordic trees of life show the branches and the roots being about equal. So that follows along that same line of thinking.
However, the Nordic connections with ash trees do continue, because Thor and Odin both apparently had magical spears made of ash, and mortal Vikings also used ash for their spears, while people referred to them as the Aesling or Men of Ash. Some people believe that Tolkien took inspiration from these ancient magical practitioners, because even Gandalf's staff is apparently made of ash. And that would explain a lot of the connections between ash and magic in general, because it's believed that many witches made their brooms from ash staffs. And indeed, Druidry.org actually theorised that witches did use ash because of its Yggdrasil connections. But it could of course be a lot more simple than that, because ash makes great poles when you coppice it, and it's a very strong wood. It's handy for tools and handles because the wood takes shocks without splintering, and indeed many articles do talk about the fact that ash used to be a really popular wood for things like garden handles, for like hoes and spades and things, because of the fact it's got a really good natural shock absorber property to it. Ash also has wider protective qualities, because you could sew a sprig of ash and a little piece of elm bark into your coat lining for protection, And in Yorkshire, people would tie bunches of ash leaves to horse bridles to protect them both against flies and evil magic. And obviously remember that because ash is such a dense wood, it was also one of the traditional woods used for the Yule log, and meanwhile a wand made of ash actually symbolised reverence. And also ash trees could bestow interesting powers as well, and there was a belief in the West Country that people buried the first nail clippings of their children under ash trees because this would make them great singers, which is quite an interesting connection. Now I'm going to move on from those slightly more grab bag collection of superstitions to the link between ash and prophecy, because there was a belief that you could put ash leaves under your pillow and then see what your dreams bring you. In Northern England, the practice was particularly helpful if you were a young woman and you wanted to dream of your future husband. Young women were also advised of another use of the ash in love divination, and if they found an even ash, they should put it into their glove, saying, "The even ash in my glove, the first I meet shall be my love." Now, the even ash is essentially an ash leaf that's got an even number of smaller leaves along each side of the stalk. And you could also use these for luck, so if you found one, you should pick it up and say, "Even ash I do thee pluck, hoping thus to meet good luck. If no luck I get from thee, I shall wish thee on the tree." There is also the old proverb, "Avoid an ash, it counts the flash," which refers to the belief that ash attracts lightning strikes. I have also heard people rework this as "avoid an ash, it courts the flash," which would actually, I think, make more sense, but that particular version, "avoid an ash, it counts the flash," came from John Simpson, Jennifer Speaks, the Oxford Dictionary of Proverbs. Also, according to Margaret Baker, a failed crop of keys or ash seeds predicts a death in the royal family, and allegedly no ash trees bore keys in 1648, which was the year before Charles I's execution. So make of that what you will. Now, we have obviously looked at the link between ash trees and magic and indeed prophecy, but now we're going to have a look at the link between ash trees and healing, which I think in a lot of ways this section is the part where I really came across ash trees for the first time. And a teaspoon of ash sap became a popular remedy suitable for newborn babies, and indeed in some places it became the recommended first meal of newborn babies. I wouldn't recommend it, but there we go. In some villages, if you had a weak or ailing child, you would make a cleft in an ash tree or sapling, and then the child would be passed through the cleft. In some places they were passed through like 11 times, but the number does vary across the different sources that I've read. But then what they would do is they would then bind the tree back together. Sometimes they would nail it together, and this binding the tree would then help the tree to heal as the child healed. And in some places the child would also grow quite protective of their tree. And it's not surprising because quite a lot of people believe that the lives of the tree and the child actually became linked through this ritual. And apparently some woodsmen even found the nails in the ash trees many years later. So it is quite cool that it's evidence that the ash tree did obviously survive this particular procedure. And in Northern England, people thought that ash trees could cure rickets. And elsewhere in Britain, people also believed that it could cure warts. Now, you can give this one a try if you want, but you were believed to carry a pin in or put a needle in your clothes somewhere. And then after 3 days of carrying it around, you would push it into the wart, pull it out, and then push it into the ash bark. And then as you did so, you would say, ashen tree, pray by these warts of me." If you are going to do this, apparently it should transfer the wart to the tree, but if you've got multiple warts, you should have a different needle or pin for each wart. And then apparently you should then start seeing warty growths on the tree, which is your wart having been transferred. In Herefordshire, people pinned a lock of hair to an ash tree to cure whooping cough, and apparently this could even cure cases of whooping cough as far away as London, so that was a bit of a mail order idea as far as I can gather from Baker, that people would essentially send locks of their hair and people would then pin them onto this particular ash tree. There's also a rather strange remedy that people suffering from ague would describe their symptoms to a woodsman, and then once the patient left and went home, the woodsman would then cut the first branch from a maiden ash. And maiden ash trees are those that are self-sown, so they're not planted by humans, they're not cultivated by humans, they're not transplanted or anything. They're essentially trees that have just done their own thing. And the patient should feel immediate relief once the branch has been cut. And this is a super specific one, but I kind of love it anyway. If you found an ash chip that had been cut when the sun entered the sign of Taurus, and that's like the point when the sun actually enters the sign, the chip could actually cure nosebleeds. And apparently someone in Salisbury tried this for James II in 1688 and it actually worked. So that one's on record. It's entirely possible it might have been a coincidence, but it does make quite a good story. Why Taurus? I'm not 100% sure, but there we go. And finally, distillations of ash leaves could apparently help restore hearing. And with this remedy, you were directed to chop up the leaves, distill them in water, and then use the solution to rinse out your ears. Personally, I think you're probably better off seeing a pharmacist. And there are also some links between ash trees and animals, and also pain remedies for animals using the ash tree, which is quite cool that it doesn't just restrict itself to people. So one of the really quite random remedies for pain in cattle involves shrews, because people thought that cows ended up in pain because a shrew ran over them, apparently. This is according to Jacqueline Simpson. So what they would do is they would bore a hole in an ash tree trunk, and then they would block a live shrew in the hole. And then if they laid the twigs or leaves from that particular ash tree, they could use those to cure any pain or cramp felt by the cattle. So it's one of these ideas of sympathetic magic, that you think that the shrew causes the problem, so you can then transfer the problem into the tree, and thus that becomes the cure. Elsewhere, people buried horseshoes under felled ash trees. Farmers would then take twigs from these trees and then pass them over their cattle's back to cure them of ailments. I can't help thinking that that one sounds like a slightly better use of your time, but you know, who am I to judge? Now the final one I think is fabulous, and I can't quite put my finger on why, I just think it's cool. And this is the fact that for some reason snakes apparently hated ash trees. So people would hang wreaths from the ash tree nearest the farmhouse to protect everyone within from snake bites. And you could also draw a circle around an adder with an ash stick, and it would compel the snake to stay within the circle. I can't work out, and it didn't say if that was for a specific period of time or kind of forever, but I did think that was quite an interesting thing, that how many people actually tried that to see if it even worked. I mean, adders will generally leave you alone because they want to just be out doing their addery things, but as I say, there's quite a lot of animosity between snakes and ash trees in folklore.
Wow, I learned a lot about the ash trees today. A lot about them in folklore. The protective properties, putting a sprig in your pocket. I'm going to remember that because I think we actually have an ash tree on the farm. So, thanks guys for hanging out with me today and learning a little bit more about the Celtic tree signs. Next week we're going to go on to the alder tree. And if you don't have anything else to do, hang out with us at the book club on Wednesday. See ya.